Sophia, a stepmother, often found herself immersed in loneliness. Her husband James was a dedicated entrepreneur wholly absorbed in his career. While she admired his determination, she yearned for small gestures of affection, a touch, a glance that acknowledged her presence. Over time, their marriage had fallen into a monotonous routine, devoid of excitement. Sophia's days blurred together as she roamed their expansive home, her only company the stillness and her own thoughts. Everything shifted when her stepson, Liam, returned home. At 25, Liam radiated energy and confidence, lighting up every space he entered. Freshly back from studying abroad, he carried an air of sophistication and charm that Sophia couldn't ignore. His laughter breathed life into the house, breaking through the quiet that had once consumed it. One evening, after a shower, Sophia stood before the mirror drying her hair. She unclasped her bra, letting it slide from her shoulders and tossing it onto the bed. As she looked at her reflection, her bare chest rising and falling with a sigh, she felt exposed yet liberated in the privacy of her room. Suddenly the door creaked open. Startled, Sophia spun around, instinctively covering herself. "Liam!" she gasped. His face turned a deep shade of red as he averted his eyes, though they lingered for a moment longer than they should have. "I'm sorry, I thought you were downstairs," he stammered, his voice thick with embarrassment. Sophia's heart raced, part embarrassment, part something she couldn't quite name. "You need to knock," she managed, her tone softer than intended. "I'm sorry," Liam muttered, starting to leave. Yet, he hesitated, his gaze returning to hers, conflicted. "Liam," Sophia began gently, "it's fine. Just close the door." He did as she asked, but instead of leaving, he spoke again. "I didn't mean to walk in on you," he said, eyes downcast. "But I can't stop thinking about you." Sophia froze. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam stepped closer, regaining his confidence. "I've always admired you, Sophia. But now that I'm back, it's more than that. I see you, and I can't look away." A lump formed in her throat as unspoken emotions filled the air. "Liam, this is wrong," she whispered. He interrupted her. "Then why does it feel so right?" Before she could respond, he was standing close, his hand brushing her arm, sending a shiver through her. She didn't pull away. Instead, she met his gaze, her resolve faltering. "You're young! You don't understand what you're saying," she murmured, though her words lacked conviction. "I know exactly what I'm saying," Liam replied. "You deserve to feel wanted and loved." His words disarmed her, and when he leaned in, she didn't resist. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, growing deeper as passion surged between them. His hands rested on her waist, firm yet tender, as if afraid to shatter the moment. Sophia let herself be swept away, her arms wrapping around his neck. For the first time in years, she felt alive, cherished, and desired. When they finally parted, their breaths were uneven. "Liam," she whispered, her voice shaking, "we shouldn't be doing this." "But we already have," he replied softly, his forehead resting against hers. Sophia closed her eyes, torn between her desires and her conscience. When Liam gently cupped her cheek, she knew everything had changed. She stepped back, crossing her arms over her chest as the weight of their actions sank in. Her heart pounded, drowning out her thoughts. Liam stood there, his breathing heavy, his gaze unwavering. "We can't," she whispered, though her words lacked conviction. "Tell me you don't feel it," Liam said gently, stepping closer. "Tell me you don't feel this connection." He took her hands, placing them against his chest. His touch sent a spark through her that she couldn't ignore. As he kissed her again, Sophia found herself getting lost in the moment, her resolve slipping further. She looked into his eyes, her lips trembling as she tried to formulate a response. "It's complicated," she whispered. "It doesn't have to be," he replied, reaching for her hand. His fingers brushed hers, igniting something she couldn't suppress. "I don't care about the rules or what anyone thinks. I care about you." Sophia pulled her hand away, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. Sophia, her voice trembling, said, "You don't understand how dangerous this is, Liam. For both of us." "Then let it be dangerous," he replied, urgency lacing his tone. "I've never felt like this before, Sophia. I can't just ignore it." Her resolve faltered under the weight of his words and the intensity in his gaze. She turned away, her heart racing uncontrollably. "You need to leave," she whispered, her voice so quiet it was almost inaudible. "Please, Liam." Liam hesitated, his jaw clenching as he weighed his next move. After a moment he nodded, though the pain in his eyes was evident. "All right," he said softly, walking toward the door. Just before exiting, he glanced back at her, his expression filled with longing. But this isn't over, Sophia. I know you feel it too. The door clicked shut, leaving Sophia alone, her emotions in turmoil. She sank onto the edge of her bed, burying her face in her hands. What had she done? The next few days passed in a blur. Sophia threw herself into housework and errands, desperately trying to distract herself and avoid Liam. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape the memory of his touch, his words, or the fire he had ignited within her. Liam, however, refused to be ignored. Late one evening, as Sophia stood at the sink washing dishes, she heard his footsteps approaching. "I can't keep pretending everything's normal," he said, his voice steady but laden with emotion. Sophia set the dish down, turning to face him. "Liam, we agreed." "No," he interrupted, stepping closer. "You agreed. I never did." "Please, don't make this harder than it already is," she pleaded, her voice unsteady. "I'm not trying to make it harder," he replied, his tone softening. "I'm trying to make it real." Before she could respond, he closed the distance between them. His hands gently cupped her face, and his lips brushed against hers, seeking permission. This time, Sophia didn't resist. She leaned in, her hands gripping his arms as the dam of emotions finally broke. Their kiss deepened, fueled by the unspoken feelings they had both tried to suppress. Liam's hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer. For the first time in years, Sophia felt truly wanted. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads rested together, breaths ragged and hearts pounding. "We'll figure this out," Liam whispered with determination. "Together." Sophia closed her eyes, her heart torn but unable to deny the pull she felt toward him. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of something more, something forbidden but irresistible. The days that followed turned into a delicate dance. Every interaction between Sophia and Liam was charged with unspoken tension. In the kitchen, their eyes would meet briefly. In the hallway, their fingers would brush in passing. Despite her initial resistance, Sophia's defenses began to crumble. One quiet evening, as the house settled into stillness, Liam found Sophia alone on the porch swing. The warm summer air enveloped them, and the distant chirping of crickets was the only sound. She looked up as he approached, the soft light from the porch illuminating her face. "Can't sleep?" he asked in a low voice, careful not to disturb the peaceful night. She shook her head and patted the spot next to her. "Too much on my mind." Liam sat beside her, the swing creaking under their weight. For a moment, they sat in silence, the tension between them almost tangible. "I've been thinking about you," he said finally, breaking the quiet. Sophia turned to him, her lips parting in surprise. "Liam!" he interrupted gently, his eyes locking onto hers. "Let me say this. You're all I think about, Sophia. You've taken over every corner of my mind, and I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." Her breath caught as she looked away, focusing on the dark horizon. "It's not that simple," she whispered. "It is," he insisted, his voice gaining strength. "We feel something real, Sophia. Why fight it?" Turning back to him, her eyes brimmed with both longing and fear. "Because it's not just about us. There are consequences, Liam. People wouldn't understand." Liam reached for her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "I don't care what anyone else thinks. All I care about is you." His words shattered her restraint. The walls she had clung to for so long crumbled as she leaned forward, capturing his lips in a kiss that was both desperate and tender. Liam responded instantly, his hand sliding to the back of her neck to deepen the kiss. Their connection was electric, a mix of suppressed passion and raw emotion. The swing swayed slightly as he pulled her closer, his other hand resting on her waist. Time seemed to pause, the world around them fading into irrelevance. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads touched as their breaths mingled in the warm night air. Sophia opened her eyes, her heart hammering as she looked at him. "Well, this changes everything," she murmured. "Good," Liam said with a soft smile, "because I don't want to go back to pretending." Sophia let out a shaky laugh, her emotions a whirlwind of joy and uncertainty. "We're going to have to figure this out." "We will," he promised, his hand still holding hers. The night stretched on, but for the first time, Sophia felt a glimmer of hope. A belief that somehow their love could endure whatever challenges lay ahead. As weeks turned into months, Sophia and Liam found themselves entangled in an increasingly complex web of emotions and secrecy. Their passion burned intensely, but the reality of their relationship's consequences loomed heavily, casting a shadow over their happiness. One evening, after a particularly emotional conversation, Sophia made a difficult decision. Sitting beside Liam in her bedroom, she held his hands tightly in hers, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "We can't keep doing this, Liam," she said softly, her voice unsteady. Liam's expression crumbled, the hope that had carried him dimming like a fading light. "Why? I thought we were building something real." "We were," she whispered, her grip on his hands firm. "And it was beautiful. But it can't continue. The world won't allow it." Taking a shaky breath, her voice faltered as she continued. "I love you, Liam. That's why I have to let you go." His head shook as tears glistened in his own eyes. "Number, we can figure this out. We can leave. Start over somewhere new. I'll give you everything, Sophia. Just don't walk away from us." Her heart ached at his plea, but deep down, she knew what she had to do. "You deserve more than a love that thrives in secrecy and fear," she said, her voice barely holding steady. "You deserve a life where you're not constantly looking over your shoulder or questioning whether what we have is right or wrong." Liam cupped her face, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "You're the only thing that feels right. Without you, nothing else matters." Sophia leaned into his touch, committing to memory the way his hands felt on her skin, how his love made her feel alive. But as much as she longed to stay, she knew their story had reached its conclusion. They shared one last lingering kiss, pouring every bit of their love and longing into that fleeting moment. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads rested together, both unwilling to let go just yet. "I'll never forget you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'll always be in my heart," he replied, his words thick with emotion. With that, Sophia stepped back, the space between them feeling insurmountable. Liam watched as she turned and walked away, her figure disappearing down the hallway. He didn't try to stop her, understanding this was her way of protecting them, even if it meant shattering their hearts. Years later, Sophia sat in a bustling cafe, sipping her coffee as the world moved around her. Though her life had moved forward, the memories of her time with Liam remained, bittersweet and treasured. A soft smile played on her lips as she traced the rim of her cup. The echoes of their love, a quiet reminder of what had once been. Across the room, a familiar figure caught her eye. Liam. Their eyes met, and for a moment, it felt as though no time had passed. He smiled at her, his expression a blend of warmth and wistfulness. She returned the smile, her heart swelling with a mixture of joy and melancholy. Neither of them moved closer, but in that fleeting exchange they both understood. Their love, though brief, had left an indelible imprint on their souls, and sometimes that was enough.